Hey folks, and welcome back to the Leeds Gamer. This is a bit of an outlandish little video that I'm going to do here, but currently Scandinavian club Bodo Glimt are maybe punching above their weight when it comes to European competition. They have recently held their own against Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester City, and there's two players in particular that seem to have really stood out. So, with Leeds looking to improve their attacking reinforcements, I thought I'd do a little bit of a video on the two players that stood out against Manchester City in particular. And actually these two were the ones who scored the goals against Manchester City in a recent 3-1 victory. Now, it needs to be pointed out, Manchester City did not field their strongest lineup. However, you would think that even a weakened Manchester City lineup would probably still be strong enough to deal with anything that Bodo Glimt could throw at them. However, this was not the case, and Bodo Glimt made Manchester City look very poor. And on the flip side, Bodo looked very, very good in comparison. Obviously, it's a bit of a one-night only gig, this, but it can't be ignored. So, the two players that stood out by the fact that they scored the goals. On the left, you have got winger and attacking midfielder Jens Petter Hauge, something like that. As you can see there, he's got a market value of just €4.5 million, so roughly around £3 million. He's one of Bodo's own, 26-year-old, 1m84, right-footed. He's been at Bodo Glimt since January 25, so he's been there just a year. There is a bit of time on his contract. Does play left wing, but as you can see from the graphic there, can play right wing. Oh God, you know, I think I've been bloody drinking, and I've been teetotal since I was 25. And can also play attacking midfield. When it comes to the player on the right, that is Kasper Høeg, something like that. I don't know these Scandinavian pronunciations. He's got a market value currently of €8 million, so roughly £6 million. 25-year-old, 1m86, so slightly taller than Hauge. Also right-footed, been at Bodo an extra year, and has an extra year on top remaining on his contract. And he plays as a centre forward. The goals that these two scored against Manchester City were good goals, especially Hauge's. Hauge's goal was a beauty, to be fair. Now, as we know, we've just brought in Buonanotte on loan, and with Bodo Glimt flexing their European muscles at the moment, they are never going to want to let two of their most productive attacking options leave. And just because the market values currently show us €4.5 million and €8 million doesn't mean to say that they would be willing to sell them for 4.5 or €8 million. So Leeds would have to stump up some cash. So, where would Leeds potentially get the money to be able to bring these lads in? Possibly Joel Piroe. Whatever money Leeds could potentially bring in for Joel Piroe, there is the possibility then that they could maybe look at getting Kasper Høeg. As far as Jens Petter Høeg is concerned, the only other players that could possibly leave Leeds right now is maybe Illemelier, but we wouldn't get any kind of a fee for him, I don't think. And I don't think that Daniel Farke is wanting to sell anyone. So we would probably have to look at a structured deal in some shape or form, especially if we were trying to get both players at the same time. Then maybe a structured deal for the two, would work. Now, would Joel Piroe go to a club like Bodo Glimt? Again, I mean, if we were looking at maybe a player plus cash deal, I would doubt it. However, on the flip side, Piroe would probably start for them if they were losing Høeg, and he'd get the chance to play European competition. Obviously, the Norwegian league is not a strong league, but Bodo Glimt are obviously one of the best in that league at the moment, and it'd be a different challenge for him. He'd probably score a shed ton of goals in that domestic league at the very least. But then on top of that, the opportunity to play in a European competition, could that maybe sway Joel? I don't know. I would doubt it in terms of where Bodo Glimt are currently. I just don't think it's a division that would appeal to him. But again, it would be, if he wasn't going to be involved in that, then we need the likes of either maybe a Celtic or a PSV to stump up some cash. That just shows a graph of their varying market values. Both of them have been up to a maximum of 10 million euros in the past. This shows their transfer history. Frankfurt and Bodo Glimt is obviously where Høeg has been, whereas Høeg has basically not been out of Scandinavia. In terms of the goal and assist outputs, the Elite Serien, which I believe is the Norwegian Premier League, effectively, Jens Petter Høeg has got 22 assists and 38 goals in 133 appearances, and Kasper Høeg has got 34 goals and 10 assists in 65 appearances. These stats for both these players are really not that bad. They're pretty good. Again, we have to take into account the domestic league is not a strong league. But you can only beat what's put in front of you. And effectively, if guys know where the goal is, then there's a chance that they could possibly do a job. I don't want Leeds to rock the apple cart as far as the squad's concerned. The harmony in the squad is very good at the minute, and any player coming in has to be of the right quality, both from a playing point of view and also as a person. And this is why we've got a very positive atmosphere at Ellen Road right now, because the squad does have a good squad harmony about it. Something that Daniel Farke prides his squad of having. So, quite a bit of history going on there for the two of them. And if you put all competitions together, you've got 63 assists and 68 goals in 326 appearances for Høeg, and then for Høeg, the two names are even pronounced similar. They're spelled completely different. But yeah, for Jorge, 113 goals and 17 assists in 234 appearances. You know, these stats really aren't bad. They're not bad at all. As you can see here, Kasper Høeg has been a youth international for Denmark. Jorge has got 13 caps for the senior Norway side, with a goal in amongst all that, and has played numerous age groups under that as well. These two are obviously teammates of each other. I'm not 100% sure as to whether these, I don't know whether this table kind of separates anything or whatever, but the two of them obviously work well together. You know, the stats prove that. They haven't played any matches against each other. So I just wonder, you know, sometimes it's not necessarily a case of signing players who are extremely well known. You know, because in a lot of cases those players will cost money that Leeds United currently don't have. But could these two, you know, well, would these two be useful players to sign? You could argue that we're pretty well stacked as far as wingers are concerned. And so therefore Jorge would probably be vying for maybe a 10 position in a sense. But, you know, we haven't really seen the best of Noah Okafor yet. Willie Gnonto is very much in and out of the team. Brendan Aronson's in great form at the moment. Do you play him in a 10? Do you play him on the right? Harrison's gone out on loan and it doesn't look as if he'll ever play for Leeds again. So, you know, when you look at it like this, you know, obviously we've got Dan James that's going to be coming back from injury at some point. You know, should the Leeds board try and put something together for these two? Again, it was a young defence that Manchester City put out against Bodo Glimt, but Bodo Glimt really put Manchester City to the sword. They defended well when they needed to, and then getting forward. You should go and watch the 3 goals that these two players scored against Manchester City. They were good goals, especially Hauger's. He really, like, he pretty much got the ball from near the halfway line and just basically took it on himself and then killed a beauty into the top corner. So yeah, I don't know. The only other thing that kind of puts me off the idea of this is the fact that Norwich City are rumoured to be interested in Kasper Høeg. Now, if this is a player that Norwich City think they can get, is he really going to be good enough for the Premier League? You would argue maybe not. You know, Josh Sargent is likely to leave Norwich this month after basically refusing to play for them. Norwich are in a relegation battle at the moment, which is crazy. You know, most people would see Norwich as a very solid Championship team, but they are struggling. Which would then make you wonder, should Leeds then be considering Josh Sargent as a potential backup for, you know, for the likes of DC Alamecha. It's already pretty much been confirmed that Pirro does not want to go back down to the Championship, so that's a no-go. So, like, if Norwich wanted to do a player swap deal between Sargent and Pirro, that ain't gonna happen. Pirro sees himself either in the Premier League or possibly going back to the Eredivisie. So, you know, something like this, it's a bit far fetched. The club Leeds have already said that they've hit the limits of PSR and all the rest of it. Whether we're led to believe this or not is anyone's guess. We don't know any kind of track record with Robbie Evans. When it came to Angus Kinnear, he was open enough to even go on the Square Ball podcast and he did that for about 3 seasons running. To give some views, from the Leeds United board. Robbie Evans came out with a very long. I think it was an interview with somebody, but it was all transcripted. So I didn't see the interview with Robbie Evans, on video. But Robbie Evans basically came out and said that Leeds had maxed their PSL limit. Now, if they've done that, if Leeds have maxed out their PSL limit, you've got to consider a few things. Jack Harrison's gone out on loan, so did that somehow potentially either fund the loaning of Facundo Buonanotte, or at the very least, because Fiorentina are paying quite a bit of Jack Harrison's wages, that with those wages freed up, they were then able to afford a loan for Buonanotte. Bearing in mind, the Buonanotte deal does not include an option or obligation to buy. He will go back to Brighton, at the end of the season. With Harrison, there is either an option or an obligation to buy, I think. And I think that's on the basis of Fiorentina staying in Serie A, because they're in dire straits at the minute. But they've got Jack Harrison and Manor Solomon. So maybe a former Leeds United wing partnership might help them. You never know. So to conclude, should Leeds United really pull the boat out and try and bring these 2 players in? They look decent. There's no doubt about it. But again, I'm not saying that they're amazing, but they're decent. And I think at the moment, what Leeds need, I don't necessarily think that Leeds need to add players who are necessarily better than what we've got, but we need players who are going to add to the quality and add to the depth of the quality. And is it possible that maybe these 2 fellas would do that? I don't know. I've not seen enough of them. But I saw the highlights against Manchester City, and these 2 were impressive. And it's not just against Man City that they've done well in. I think they've got a really good draw against Tottenham as well. Tottenham are having a season where they're doing really well in Europe, but they're doing rubbish in the league. So again, it makes the draw that I think they drew 2-2 or something. It makes the draw for Bodo Glimt even more credible. More credible against a team like Tottenham. And Leeds have got a good track record with Scandinavian players in the past. When you look at the Norwegian and Danish players that have played for Leeds in the past, we've had a good track record with them. Both of these fellas are the right age, they're the right kind of height. But are they players that could enhance the Leeds squad? That is the big question. I think it's possible. The fact that these guys are playing, European football against good teams, if they can hack it against those, maybe they'd have a chance of being good squad players in the Premier League. And compared to some players out there, these 2 ain't going to break the bank. Not massively. And as I say, if Leeds could agree with Bodo Glimt with structured deals, you pay them an amount up front and then staggered amounts over seasons, maybe deals with add-ons, performance-based add-ons perhaps, something like that. Is this an avenue that Leeds should consider? Let me know down in the comments below. Do I think that Leeds will go for either of these 2? Absolutely not. But, would these 2 enhance the squad? Or are these 2 of, say, the equivalent of Championship level in England? Let me know. But big thank you for watching. Do please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Do please hit the like button and hype the video if it allows you. But big thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.